Hello, Hoovians, and welcome back to the main third channel. Yes, I've got too many channels. Confusion can arise, even when you're thinking about making a 23rd. Don't ask. Just don't ask. Today, we are here doing another wonderful interview, and if you stick around to the weird side, you'll find more interviews. Not saying when, due to the fact that that was supposed to be a hint, but no one will have got the hint because no one's as interested in this as I am, it seems, according to what I've just said. So, but we move on. We move on. Today, my guest is best known for appearing in the smash hit that just got its first ever spin-off. So it's technically the MCU, but in different words. Not my joke, someone else's. It's the one and only Terry Mynott.
Hello, hello.
Hello. So we'll start at the very beginning, because Julie Andrews once said it was a good place to start, and to be fair, she's not been wrong since. How did you get into the wonderful world we called acting?
Um, wow. I don't know. I think there's a lot of people ask you how'd you get started, and there's not never really one answer, is there? You just had a go at something and then failed lots, and then I think I did years ago. I did an animation on MySpace. We're one of the first runners of social media, and I just did voices on that, and it sort of blew up overnight and did okay, and then it faded away, and then I basically did like 10 or 9 voices impersonations on YouTube back in 2009 or 2008, and it didn't blow up, but it went round the right people, and then I was got into meet execs and stuff, and then start to get in that world.
Yeah. And one of the things you've done, which is I'm trying to think of a better word than the overused words, but was is excellent, is glorious, and is still available on the BBC iPlayer. A plug in itself. What was it like working on the fantastic Motherland?
It was great actually, and at first I didn't really know what I was doing. And I was, I'm in it in bits and bobs and stuff. So I slowly got into the character and into everything. But I remember, and I think it's what a lot of the actors have got on Amandaland now,
Yeah.
is working with Joanna Lumley. I mean, you grow up with Joanna Lumley, and because I'm heavily dyslexic and also my head's in the clouds, I didn't read that she was playing my mother-in-law. I didn't, because I had very little that day, and I didn't have much in that season, in that series, and then my girlfriend said to me, "You do know who's playing your mother-in-law?" And I was just about to go in, and all I had is a scene where I walk up to the car and I say, "Hello, Felicity," blah blah blah. And I just, yeah, you just have those weird. I just walked up and I went, "Hello," it was all over the place. And she's like, "Hello, darling," and it was like fantastic.
Yeah.
And then I did the Christmas special with her, I think, which was the last thing that Motherland did. And I got to spend a day with her, and it was just fab. It's just lovely when you get those sort of pinch me moments.
Yeah, and when you said it was fab, it was absolutely fabulous.
There you go, dumb tish.
Yeah, and terrible joke, but someone else to say. It. So when you're working on a show like that, did you know after the first series, did you know that Motherland was going to be the huge hit that it became?
No, I don't think you get until the third one. And that's why I think sometimes it's a bit harsh when channels cancel something before it get, because it needs to, you need to iron everything out. But by the third series, uh, people were sort of saying, "Oh, hello," or people were going, "Excuse me, are you in Motherland?" and stuff. And that's when you know
Yeah,
that it's quite a juggernaut.
yeah. And why do you reckon that Motherland became this juggernaut? Is it because of how relatable the characters seem, or do you reckon it's just because
Oh
it's
God, if
hilarious?
if I'm brutally honest with you, God knows, like everything's alchemy. And as I get older, I say that all the time, but you don't, it's like with an audience, sometimes a joke that worked the night before might not work. It's just like an ocean that's just moving and stuff. And I don't know. I think you've got some brilliant characters all the way through it.
Yeah.
Um, and they've got the light and shade, from all of them. But oh no, I don't know. The older I get, the more I think that, oh, I know. And then I get a year later on and I'm like, oh no, I don't really. Fabulous writing. There
Yeah.
you go.
And one of the other things you've appeared on is, well, I'm going to have to rephrase that now, but was called, the institution was called the children's playground, if you will. I don't think anyone called that. It's just an analogy that I thought would work. What would it like appearing in 17 episodes of the smash hit daytime program Doctors?
Oh, I wonder what you were talking about there. Shall I tell you, right? I'll be brutally honest. I fought it. I said to my agent, I'm not interested. And that is just like your ego, not yours, although people do say, but ego just gets in the way. And in the end, I did do it. I loved every second of it. I loved all the people that I worked with. And I really, really enjoyed it. But there was lots of stuff before. I mean, have they stopped it now? I'm not quite sure. But I had no idea about multiple um, sets.
Yeah.
So I thought I was by the beach because I live down here in Cardiff, and I was down by the beach having a lovely time. And they said, you're in 2 hours. And I, what? And they said, we had check schedule two. So you're filming three schedules at once. And when I started, I was quite smug because I knew all my lines. And by the end, I had absolutely no idea because every Friday the scripts are coming
Yeah.
at you. But there's lots of stuff where the BBC site that they use it has asbestos poisoning. So you did a lot of stuff where you were like, you'd have a go at somebody and go, ah, you better do this or I'll kill you. And then you just go and stand up against the wall because you couldn't go into that bit of the building. But the crew and the writers and everything, it was absolutely fantastic. I had an absolute whale of a time.
And when you find out about the behind the scenes of these things, then you know that it's like a train, like multiple trains come at once, it's not like
Yeah,
ever. But it's one of those things that at the moment there's a podcast going around. I say going around, it's in one place, where
yeah,
I
like an
can't
ice cream truck.
yeah, yeah. She talked to other people that were in other soaps, not just doctors, but
Yeah,
too many people that were in the doctors. And the one of the cast members, I can't remember which one now. She said that she had the words to the script on a clipboard under a desk, and she
yeah.
sat behind a desk, so she was able to lift it up and pretend that she's doing some paperwork, but she's really just checking what her next line is that she's going to say in like 4 seconds. And
Mhm.
do you reckon that that's why Doctors was so loved because it was like, even though the actors might have been terrified that what they were going to say was wrong, it was still perfect.
I think that you got to have a lot of respect for soap actors, especially if you look at the ones that are in it longest and when they have to put their heart and soul into it. A lot of the time, the scripts can be a little bit weird and take some very crazy directions, but they give it their all. And I think every actor should do soap at one point because it just is a baptism of fire. It just throws you in, and you've got to learn that scene
Yeah,
and then go do it, go do it, go do it, and go do it as honestly as you can and as good as you can.
yeah,
Um, but the other thing that they don't explain about, especially on Doctors, is you end up that you have writers who work on for it for a certain amount of
yeah,
time, and then another writer will take over. So your character won't take some turns and stuff. I think my character went from being incredibly mean to, oh, he's not that bad. And then he went mean again. And then it was all over the place. But I have a lot of respect for soap actors. And I grew up with my mum being a hardcore Coronation Street fan. And I think early days of Coronation Street were just as good as it got, really.
yeah. And because no Doctors has ceased to exist, and people are upset, and hopefully one day it'll do the Neighbours where, oh, it's over, and none of the cast are upset because they all knew that it was coming back anyway.
Yeah.
Do you reckon that there'll ever be another program of that similar ilk
I've
that
no idea because I think daytime TV is alive and it's where everything else has declined a little bit. The thirst for daytime TV is through the roof. And so if you look at all the things that are being made, from even Midsummer Murders and stuff, there's a huge appetite for that. So who knows, really? Um, but I wonder if it will go down into many episodes of
yeah,
rather than something that goes. But I don't know, really. I think as you've had a decline in ratings anyway. I think EastEnders was down by about 2 million for a Christmas special at one point, and we are in a different world. When I grew up, Sexy and Fabulous was Home and Away and Neighbours.
yeah,
And now you'll see on Instagram and TikTok, it will do the rounds of those storylines,
yeah,
and it's like, oh, we got the car wet, and it's like, oh, you got the car wet, and that's what we. So I'm not sure. I think there is a place for soaps, but I think there's definitely going to have to be a gear change of how we digest them because um, the world's changing, really.
yeah. And I think that when you look at soaps now, the well, not just the liquid, but the TV versions. Poor John. The vast, and when you look at like programs like Neighbours, Neighbours has thrived in the world of streaming, um, and that's just because the UK get it before Australia, which is brilliant because the UK get it at 7 p.m. 7 a.m. and then Australia get it the next day at like 7 p.m. So we've already had it because they get it on traditional TV in Australia. Do you reckon that streaming is the way forward for subs, or do you reckon that terrestrial TV is its home?
No, I don't know really. I think that at the minute we talk about smart TVs, but they're not very smart at all, are they? It's like apps so painful, dig, 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 and the latency in them. But eventually, those TVs will be packed with AI and we'll be able to talk. So basically, your TV is going to be your PC, and then it will understand a lot more of your habits and it will change. So I think terrestrial TV is like a burning fireplace. Everybody loves to have it, and you always have an older demographic who grew up with that, which
Yeah,
is myself. But I think it will change a lot. And the way technology is going, I think every 8 years things just completely change. But I think streaming's been the main place to be for about the last 15 years, really. So yeah, I think so. Yeah, definitely. But TVs will change. Like you no longer need an aerial. No houses don't even have Sky dishes anymore because Sky comes through the internet. So I think things will just change, and you can never really call it. Like you can say, I when I started out years ago in 2004, everybody was saying TV's dead, and I even went to a big show where they invited all the execs to TV, and they were it was a thing called Comedy Box with Warner's run, and they said TV's dead, and I just thought it's a ridiculous thing to say because TV will become
yeah,
something else, and it's the same thing. Just to get off this, not to go on this point too long, but radio has become podcasts,
yeah,
and it's just audio, and we're so busy that we need that audio stimulation sometimes because you want to do other things at the
yeah,
same time. So I think things will just change or morph very slowly into something. But as and when watching daytime television, doctors coming on at a certain time, I think that will eventually go. Yeah.
yeah. And what? So you mentioned radio there, and I think that the podcasts, audio dramas, and a lot more, and audio books. I think them three elements are the things that have helped radio because you could have said radio was dead, but then because of these elements becoming popular, it helps survive the medium.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things you've done in your career is, I would say, some people would say it looks slightly jarring, but them people, it's not for them because they're too old. What were they like working on 50 episodes of the 2015 version of Bob the Builder?
Oh, Bob the Builder. It was weird because it was billed as a big thing, right? They go, "Oh, well done, you've got this kids' TV sort of, helps pay the rent." And then I went in and did very, very little,
Mm,
and then it became even littler. And the people that cast it said do like a Roger Moore, and I can't remember who the other person was. So I was already in the complete wrong demographic. And then it became less and less until eventually they got rid of all my characters. So I think I was very excited about doing it. And then the more we did it, sometimes I'd go in once a season.
Yeah.
So it's one of those weird things where you it's hard to be close to it because you just went in one day and did all your lines at once, and then they were all out of context, so you've absolutely no idea. But I've got a huge respect for kids' TV. I think a good children's TV should be able to the parents should be like Bluey is just out of this world,
Yeah.
and I think it should be something that everybody could watch. So again, I have zero ego when it comes to doing anything any kind of work at all, and I was well chuffed to get it. But it became like a dwindling star in the night sky as I worked less and less on it.
And you mentioned Bluey there, and I think that Bluey is deemed the greatest children's program of all time in this
Yeah,
in the animation sphere because
I
obviously
would agree. Yeah.
yeah, and what makes it even more impressive is that there's a clip, I don't think it's going around, but I've seen it, of the Australians on the Australian version of Gogglebox, and it's all the grown-ups, the kids. When they've got the kids on, the little kids, they couldn't care less, but all the grown-ups are all crying, and you can just see them all yelling because they're watching like
Yeah,
the greatest, I think it's
it's
called the Star,
brilliant.
and
Yeah,
you see everyone crying, and I think that's what children's TV should do. Make the adults cry because it means it's good, not crying because it's hilariously bad, but
yeah.
it's crying because it's good.
Yeah, because there are some TV shows uh, that make you want to, yeah, end it all. Especially when the kids are watching them, and you're like, oh god. They're like, one more, and you're like, oh no. And Bluey isn't one of them. I always say, yeah, pop Bluey
Yeah.
on.
And why do you reckon that the 2015 version of Bob the Builder was a semi-success that it was?
Wasn't a huge success. I don't think you should take things out of stop animation, even if it's graphically, even if it's CGI done, which most of Wallace and Gromit is. A lot of the background engine is done on Unreal
Mm.
or whatever they're using. But there's a field of depth that works so much better, and I think everybody can tell when CGI is just thrown out and sourced outside. Everything has to have an aesthetic, a
Mm.
look to it, and you could probably pick some of the things out that you watched as a kid that possibly weren't the greatest written but just looked lush. And I think that's what TV has to do. It has to meet an aesthetic really, and I don't think that did. I think that just sort of chucked it out really.
And when you were working on it, was it a daunting task to work on it because you know that the name of it is a big budget. A lot of people know what it is, and
I think a little bit, yeah, and I think we also knew that, that because it was moving away from stop animation, that a lot of people were not very best pleased. But I mean, those people that are come, telling you that are normally the parents, and the kids are grown up and don't care. So kids will watch anything if it's a good story and it looks good, and even then they might not. So your audience is forever changing. You've got it with Doctor Who. You get a lot of people angry with the new Doctor Who, but
yeah,
it isn't necessarily for them. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Like it's like Bond. Normally everybody has their Bond. I have my Doctor
yeah.
who I saw actually on when I was working at Silk Studios.
Mm.
Tom Baker was in, and I was waiting to go upstairs for Bob the Builder, and I was just absolutely in awe. So I think everybody should just calm down sometimes and realize that it might not be for them.
Yeah, and I don't know how publicized it is, but there is news that Bob the Builder is returning in live action, as Roberto, and Jennifer Lopez has got something to do with it, and he's now set in Mexico. He's a
Is
Mex
it?
he's a Mexican builder called Roberto. It just sounds weird. I think,
It
but
sounds like you're setting up a gag, but then when you look at the recent Minecraft movie, you're like, nothing is mad, and He-Man's coming back as well. So
only the Netflix versions of He-Man were brilliant because it was it was like a continuation from the original, but he
Yeah,
looked more. He looked like he gained 4 extra muscles than he had previously.
yeah,
They just drew on a couple muscles to make him look a little bit more buff than he previously was.
yeah. Because that would have been his dad bod back in the day.
Yeah, yeah. And so one of the other things we've worked on was a success, and it's so successful that it I mean DVDs are on the rise, and I think it's in the list of DVDs that are on the rise. What was it like working on I'm gonna mispronounce this because I'm gonna definitely mispronounce it, but Mimic. What was it like working on Mimic?
Oh, the Mimic was lush, because we come off the back of VIP, which was an all-out impersonation show, and Matt Morgan, who wrote the show, had just we were friends, and he kind of wrote the entire show around me. And a lot of the time when we were doing the gags and stuff, where the agency that we were signed to at the time had its own studios, so we used to just go in and ad lib and work out stuff. And I mean, that's the problem with a lot of comedy is you just don't have the time. Sometimes you just have to take the check and run. And here we had almost 6 months build up before it worked, and we wanted to create. We filmed it and we did like 4 minutes, and then we did 11 minutes, and each time we changed it. And the first time we did it, he was trying to get photographs off a model or something. It was quite creepy, and he was not a very nice character. And then we just went, none of this is going to work. And we wanted to end up. There were so many comedies at the time where the lead guy always said the right thing at the right time, and it's very easy to write a sarcastic comeback when you're the writer, right? Because you're setting up, and you can sometimes see it crowbar. And we wanted to create a character that probably said the right thing, but 3 days afterwards to himself while he was at work, you know. And I think that's I will forever hold the Mimic as proud to do it. Really,
Yeah, and do you reckon that it was popular because of the way it was, or do you reckon that it was popular because at that time more comedy was being made, so more people were
I
consuming?
don't know. I don't know. I think it wasn't it wasn't in your face. A lot of the lines were well constructed and silly, and it was a comedy drama. So the drama played, you had great actors in it, Joe Hartley, Neil Maskell, Ruth Sheen, and so on. And it was so easy to, laugh at what that character, which you got with Gavin and Stacey in a sense, where you're laughing at, oh no, don't say that to that character, or don't give that character, don't tell him that. And you kind of laugh before any gags are done, really. And I think that's what was really nice about it was it didn't rely on one-liners or insane setups. It was just very character based.
Yeah, and why do you reckon that less comedy, not just on the BBC, but in general in the TV world, why do you reckon there's less comedy on TV?
I don't know. I think that, well, I do actually. It's reality TV is just cheaper to make. And you can get some great comedy in those. And channels are chasing their tails a lot of the time. They will back out on a show that has great legs, but they just don't want it. And
Yeah,
then you have a Roman emperor style to these to the channels where you're in favor with that emperor, and then he gets stabbed in the back and he goes on to a different job, and then somebody else takes over, and they don't want anything on the roster from before because they want to leave their own mark.
yeah,
So it's so hard. It's a moment in time that you have to get right.
mm,
And I think that with comedy, if you take Dark Place,
yeah,
uh, that did it do 2 series? I can't remember, but it should have done 1,000 series. But really, it it's fine. It's where it sits, and you did a great moment in time. And you have to remember that actors in the 70s and 50s would have your show go up for one night, and then it would either be repeated to death or it would never be shown again. So I think that it's easier for them to make reality TV now. And I think a lot of comedy, they are so scared to death chasing a demographic when nobody knows what the demographic
yeah,
is. Because you can laugh at it, doesn't have to be, you can have a go at middle class people, but you might love a comedy about middle class people that you have nothing to do because you love how it's set up. There's no science to it. again, it's alchemy and it's just the right stuff at the right time. And I think sometimes, when I started there, when the Mimic went, they'd halved their budget for comedy. Channel 4 was huge for comedy.
Yeah.
So I don't really know.
Yeah, and
But
you mentioned there that reality TV has comedy in it, and I think that
yeah.
it proves it when you watch The Traitors and you realise that they're all really stressed and none of them can spell anyone's name correctly. I think there's one moment which is hilarious where one of them misspells a name and the person sat next to him that they've written down and she goes, you know, there's a H there, and it's oh, why does that happen to me? And they
Yeah,
got
yeah, yeah.
really aggressive. We turn around and go because he just wants to get rid of them, but he's just like really annoyed that he misspelled it. And
Yeah, and good, and you can't get down like a load of people. I think as you get older, you just can't slate things really because after a while you become a fan of reality TV if it's done really well, you know. And if it isn't done very well, you can kind of spot it a mile off.
yeah, and one of the things you've done is interesting in the sense of I don't know many programs that had its initial run on one channel, then had its spin off on another channel. I don't know many programs that do that. But what was it like working on 3 episodes of the original version of Toast of London?
Oh yeah, great. Yeah. Well, I met Matt at the Channel 4 Comedy Awards, and we both love old actors and stuff, and we're talking about old voices. And then we exchanged numbers and we're on WhatsApp sending silly, James Mason notes and stuff. And I sent him a James Mason note talking about the virtues of caravans. Because of caravans have always got crazy names, like the Musketeer is an excellent caravan, although the windows are dark. And then eventually he created the characters because there's three different characters I play,
Yeah.
and it was just great fun to go in there. Also, I mean, it was littered with great actors. Um, Peter Davidson was there, and many others. And I met Tracy Ann Oman there as well, and lots of other people.
Yeah.
And it was so hot. It was so hot when we did that. So I'm in a huge bowler neck talking about the virtues of high winds acting.
And why do you reckon that became that in itself became a phenomenon and it made it into books
because
and
it's because
and
it's because it's mad, and that's what you need. If you go back to my start of comedy, which was the alternative crew, which was the Dangerous Brothers with Rick Mail and Ben Elton and all that lot, and Alexi Sales. You go back and you look at the films they made. Um, a lot of them are as rough as hell. I call it the orange. Real comedy is like a dirty, big, waxy orange covered in piths. Comedy is a vitamin C pill. If you want to laugh your ass off, you take like Stir Crazy, which is one of the first things that I ever really, really laughed at as a kid. The movie gets really lost towards the end, and there's a lot of bits that are less than good, but there are bits in it that are so gorgeous and really, really funny. And things have to be nuts, like the young ones. It was nuts,
yeah,
and a lot of it was silly for silly sake, but it becomes yours, and you enjoy it. And I think one of the characters was a young girl, but she had a disease that made her look like Bruce Forsyth. It's ridiculous, and I think that's what you need a lot of the time. You need the sides of the spectrum of insane to well observed character comedy.
yeah,
It was nuts. It
yeah,
was truly wonderfully nuts,
yeah.
and I think that's what made it so great.
Yeah, and I think that what also made it great was that the spin-off was set in I think it's like Hollywood, but
Yeah,
actually filmed in the UK. They didn't even go near Hollywood. I think that that's what made the spin-off even funnier because you knew they made it very obvious that they were
yeah,
filming
yeah.
in the place it was set in. And do you reckon that that's why Matt Berry is so loved because he can create something that is obvious that it's ridiculous even
Mm.
by the setting.
I think so. I think Matt is, if you go look at his early work as well, he's just very, very good at being him. And
Yeah,
that in itself, it sounds like a ridiculous thing to say, but it's like your favorite stand-up. You
yeah,
can't really put your finger on why you like them so much. And even if you got AI to mimic them properly, it still probably wouldn't do a good enough job because it's how their brains work.
yeah.
And with Matt, I mean, I did his Bell's whiskey adverts. One snowy Christmas Eve, they called me up to do him, and I knew he would say Bell's whiskey. I knew he'd elongate, and so I did it. And then they released the advert 2 years later, and yeah, he was doing it. So you can kind of, when you can mimic people, and that's when they're really stamped out as a character.
And I saw a clip of Matt Berry once said that he doesn't get paid that much for doing the in the Strictly Come Down to the theme tune. He's in it, so he sings a line in it.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, but because it's the same theme tune for every version of Strictly Come Down to around the world, he doesn't get paid any more money for it.
yeah.
Got paid the once, and he doesn't get paid every time it gets used in Nigeria, in
Yes.
Africa, in Canada, or wherever. He doesn't
Yeah.
get a cent, which I think is hilarious.
Yeah. Well, I bet he didn't.
Well, no, he was telling the rest of the what do we do in the Shadows cast, and someone went, "Do you get paid more?" He went, "No, no, I don't."
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a bone of contention for him. Yeah.
and one of the other things that I've seen that was hilarious of him is that someone does a really good impression of him. So they got him on stage with his person who does a really good impression.
Yeah.
Him to do the impression to Matt Berry.
Yeah.
And Matt Berry said, "Right, could you say this?" And then he would say it to Matt Berry.
Yeah. That's perfect. Yeah. I know Ben. Yeah. He's a fantastic up and coming voice guy. And he's truly excellent at it. Yeah.
And so one of the things you do in your life is impressions. How did you know that impressions were something that you were able to do convincingly enough?
I don't know really. I did that. You do them as a kid, and you always, I think everybody says you start with your teacher, and then you realize that you can do other things. And then I think that after a while, like I didn't do it. I wanted to be a comedian in my own right. And then one time, a comedian friend of mine just said, "Terry, do it. Everybody loves it. It's like a magic trick." And he goes, "How many do you think you do?" And I went, "Well, I probably do three really good, and the rest are terrible." And he said, "Do them all. Like don't have any shame about it. Just don't be so precious about it. If you want to stay a comedian, have the ability to go, oh, that wasn't very good, was it? Or for someone else to say that sounds more like, Joanna Lumley than blah blah." And I would do because I started in music, and I would end up doing a lot of Terry Wogan stuff for people on their videos and stuff.
Yeah,
And that was my mum would give me a lift to work, and because I worked at the same place for a year, and also growing up, the radio was always on in the morning, and you'd always have Terry floating away. And as a kid, because I was thick and young, I had no idea what he was talking about, because obviously it was for adults. But he'd always be going like, "Janice writes in, I'm currently on the B32. I'm heading southbound. I'm trying to get to Shropshire. Am I going the right way?" And you go, "What is he talking about, Mum? It's rubbish. Put Radio 1 on." And eventually, when you grow up, you realize how good he was.
yeah, yeah,
And all of them old ones, the Ronnie Corbett's and all them, and but it was Alec Guinness really with from Ladykillers, and that's where that started for me with "Remarkable Windows, Mrs. Wilberforce." And from there, I started doing Star Wars, and then from there, um, Ian McKellen, and then Morgan Freeman, and then on and on.
yeah. And I think that I think I think people love impressions because it's so, for example, Ronnie Corbett and Terry Wogan, it brings back their favourite variety performer because Terry Wogan did radio and TV, so he's a variety performer because he's
Yeah, yeah, sure, yeah, yeah.
and it's because they love those things. Because there's a comedian at the moment who I don't know if he normally looks like that, but he dresses up as Terry Wogan and does live shows as Terry Wogan. So you can go to a show and go, "What? Terry Wogan's on the bill?" And it's actually just a
Yeah,
being Terry
yeah,
Wogan. Same
yeah.
stupid things that Terry Wogan would never say. Terry Wogan's not here to argue. Why do you reckon that impressions are such a thriving part of the not just the world of comedy, but the world
Oh,
of
they always have been. I think it goes back to I think Peter Cook took the Mickey out of the prime minister at the time, and everyone was amazed by it. And I think it comes down to the fact I'm not precious about them. I just throw them away. It doesn't really matter. And I think it comes from the fact you'll be moaning, say you're at work and you'll be moaning about someone from accounts or somebody, and you'll just accidentally do a perfect impersonation, or you'll say something they will say, and the room cracks up. And I think because it comes from there, it comes from you taking the mickey out of teachers, taking mickeys out of your mates, or the mimicking thing. I think it just goes back to like ancient civilization, really, where you were just all taking, because taking the mickey out of each other is a very important thing, as long as it's done within the parameters of not making you angry. And I
yeah.
think, especially if you're British, and a lot of Irish as well. It's part of your DNA, really, taking the mickey out of each other, and I think that's what mimicry is, really.
And online, one of the things you do that I think is impressive due to the fact that the person isn't real, as in they're a comedy character. They're not really an actual person because if they were a real person, there'll be a lot of questions asked. But how did you know that you could do the impression of Alan Partridge?
Oh, I did it for a play. There was a play that was written about Screaming Lord Such, and the person that they wanted to do it had to do many, many voices. So I looked at the scripts, and I'm glad I didn't get it because it was beyond me. I wouldn't have been able to do it. I didn't have any theatre chops at the time, and I looked all through it, and I saw Alan Partridge there, and I thought, right, I'm going to learn this, and I'm going to get it. And I went there, and I did it, and the director went, "Okay, let's try some other voice." Didn't care in the slightest. So I parked it, which is just like to any budding comedians out there. George Carling said, if the audience don't get it, keep kicking them in the nuts. And that's the thing is like, it's not always true, but just because somebody didn't like that stuff or that room on that day didn't like it, doesn't mean you shouldn't carry on trying to do it. So I parked it for years because I thought it was subpar. And then I did it waiting for, I was picking somebody up and I just did it on Instagram. And yeah, that shot right up there. I had about 60,000 views on that. And I was totally shocked that you could do an impersonation of another impersonation and people like it.
Yeah, and do you reckon that do you reckon that Steve Coogan knows about this, or do you reckon he doesn't?
Oh, I don't think so. No, I think he's a very busy man. So probably not.
Yeah.
No. And
And
I've not really done it as much as I've done other things. I've done a few things, but I've never really dressed up as him because I don't want to really, and I don't want to do deep fake because it's just not my bag. I am somebody who does semi okay impersonations and mucks around with it and has fun with them being ridiculous rather than trying to hit it right on the head.
and now that we've come to this point in the interview where we know more about you, are you the type of person that when your things on either on TV or radio, are you the type of person that sits there, watches or listens to them, or are you the type of person that runs away so far past that hill that you have no clue what's going on and you wait until the nightmare's over?
Bits and bobs. Yeah, I will watch myself, but I'll leave the room and like have the crack in it, or I'll pretend I'm doing something. I did Phil Ellis's Trying, the BBC Radio 4 show, and I would listen to it, but I'd have to go on a walk and I'd have to listen to it on my ears and I'd have to keep walking. So I think I enjoy it a little bit more as I've got older. But still, it's very hard to enjoy stuff because when the Mimic came out, Channel 4 really threw themselves behind it and advertised it lots. And I felt like I'd ruined TV. I couldn't relax because I'd just sit there and then I'd go and I go, oh God. And then you've got to think about how it rates, because you make something and then you put so much into it. And then it's like being a musician. You've got to see how it sort of charts, ratings and so. And the whole thing you just need to step away from, really.
Yeah. And for anyone out there that's watching this and has, I'm trying to think of the correct word for this, but has got inspired,
Mm.
what advice would you give someone that wants to get into the world of acting and comedy acting in particular?
Do it. The no, no one can react if you don't act, right? It's true. And like you may not get where you want to go, but you'll get somewhere. It's much like throwing stones into a pond, and those ever increasing circles are going to go out, but it will take a long time, and you'll have to ride through what they call the disappointment valley, which are many, you'll do good gig, rubbish gig, or you'll get somewhere and they're gonna make it and then they don't make it. If you can keep going, if you love it, if you are ask yourself, if you are just a comedian, if you are an actor, if this is what you do, then I'm sorry, you're stuck at it. Many a time I have an image that I'm gonna go to Canada and just chop down trees, but then I'm so cack-handed, nobody would ever want me to do that, and I'm stuck doing this and there's nothing I can do. So be true to yourself, but you've got to be in it to win it. So start doing every single play there is, every open night that there is, every single thing, and you will get somewhere. Might not be exactly where you want to get, but you'll get somewhere.
Yeah. And from, well, at the moment, have you got anything that you're excited for people to see or hear that's an upcoming project that you are allowed to talk about? Because I know that NDAs are
Yeah.
like,
No,
oh,
well, NDAs are every single where. Like, you can't. So, I think every single voiceover I do as an NDA, so I can't talk about one thing related to the voice. But no, I'm doing a play in Liverpool. So keep an eye. Comedy play, which is totally bonkers and totally silly, which I'm can't quite remember the name of right now. And I'm also returning to stand up, which is scaring the absolute poop out of me. But I'm gonna do it because I've really enjoyed doing Instagrams and telling stories, and I need to kind of get good at that. So at the minute, I'm doing tons of opening mic nights and newcomer nights and starting completely afresh, but I would say watch the next two years. I should be performing somewhere near you.
yeah. And are you the type of person to write down your material and learn it and perform it, or are you the one that does the Billy Connolly where they just walk and say something, and then 20 minutes later you forgot what you've said?
No, look, here's the thing. Like, I'm going all through that, and I have been for the last 6 months writing. Whatever works for you. Sometimes I write, but most of the time when I finish writing, it's exactly like a script. You've got to get away and put that. You've got to get off page, which is what they say, and you have to put it down. But if you write, then you write. But as long as you leave room to ad lib and make it sound like you're not just spinning it off and make room for stuff, you're fine. So I've got a big A4 book. Just every day, I'll do 20 minutes of writing, and then I have this one where this travels with me, and any good ideas make it down to that,
Yeah.
and then I make the writing smaller and smaller and smaller. So I'll write unconsciously about something, and then I'll get it down. But I have over there a children's karaoke mic and a thingy, and I walk around in my shed slash studio, uh, and I run it and I run it, so I'm used to hearing the delay and holding a mic.
Yeah, and I think that do you reckon that that helps you more? Because I know that Simon Bird did a whole stand-up show with no audience because he wanted to attempt to do stand-up with no audience, and you saw that every chair was empty. Do you reckon that it helps you to develop the style rather than knowing if a piece is funny to an audience?
I think whatever way you do it, as long as you do it, the more like here's the thing, and people watching, you have no idea what you're capable of. You just believe the stories that you tell yourself. And if you perpetuated a bit of a load of when you were a kid about how you're not good in certain circumstances, yeah, you're not good in those certain circumstances because you've not been exposed to it. If you keep like now, if I had to go and do filming, I've got so many hours in front of the camera that I know that I'm going to be pooping myself. And I've made peace with that. Anxiety is a tiger, it's a wild animal. Don't throw a blanket over it and think you're going to be able to hide it. Walk in a room, say, I'm nervous, breathe, and do it anyway. And that's why I think Steve Buscemi says everything up until take three is a rehearsal.
Yeah, and I know that the Bear Grylls gets nervous when he's filming, so the camera crew sneak up behind him and press record. And my issue is I don't know how he knows he needs to start presenting when he doesn't have cameras on. But I think that's the way to think. But it I think one of the point is that people get
Yeah.
that you're bound to get nervous no matter what you're doing. Then it's just
Clint Eastwood doesn't say action because he thinks it ruins it, and I would agree with him. But you also have to get used to the fact that sometimes the stress is going to be up there, and someone's going to shout. Because the way filming works is speed, camera, rolling, and even before that, you've gone into wardrobe and makeup. And the first time I did it, when I was being driven there, I hung out the window like a Labrador trying to get oxygen. I was going to pass out. And then the thing is just understand you're going to be nervous. It's totally natural. Just keep breathing, keep breathing. Don't believe the stories. You can do anything as long as you do it. And then after you've done it a few times, you can make a decision if it's not for you. But don't live your life not doing something because you believe the stories that you've sort of told yourself.
yeah. And with the this is a perfect full circle moment. And this never happens, but we're
There
here
you
on
go.
with the success of the brand new MCU spin-off, Amanda Land, the Motherland Cinematic Universe, we didn't
Very
get that
good.
in it. Um, will do you reckon that your character will ever return as a cameo in the second series of Amanda Land?
Oh, I don't know. I don't think my character's relevant anymore. I think you can the way that they sort of mention her ex might be a nice way to just always keep him an ex. There's been lots of constructs like that where they forever talk about someone that you never met, like someone's ex-girlfriend or something that that sticks with you. But I don't think I need to. And I think that Amanda Land needs to create its own little universe, and it's doing very well.
Because I always thought that it would have been interesting because it's now a divorce. I would have been interested if you had appeared here just to drop the kids off because the kids had spent whatever time with the dad, and I just think that would be like it'd be like a nod to other than the fact that it's Amanda and she was in Motherland. It
Oh, who knows? Who knows? I'm open to anything. As a jobbing actor, you have to be, but you also have to make peace with the fact that it's its own thing. And if I don't show up in it, it doesn't really matter. It's
yeah,
still great.
yeah, and a lot of people now want other spin-offs. So what I've seen is they want Kevin Land, which is just Kevin.
Paul's amazing though. I saw him in the horror thing he did, which I forget, which I don't think many people saw. It was brilliant. Oh, I forget what it's called, but he plays. He's on like the end. No, he's on like a ship, and it's going across the Antarctic, and it's like 18th century. It's really really good. So he's got so many gears and he's so perfect at comedy. I've really got a man crush on him. I think he's an excellent human being.
Yeah, because I just think that Motherland works really well for spin-offs because if you just remove the word mother, you can just have anything. As long as the
Yeah.
character was in Motherland, it's always going to be a huge success.
Yeah. Who knows? Let them roll with it and may long the MC universe live.
Yeah, it'll be his own section. I like the Whoniverse. It'll be
Yeah.
the MC universe, and people will watch it and go, "That's not Captain America," and
Yeah.
it'll just be Joanna Lumley going, "I'm not Captain America. I'm Joanna Lumley."
Well, there you go. But then, in the same way with the multiverse, you could have anybody play me, and it would still work. So,
Or you can have Joanna Lumley playing every role possible.
well, we'd all still watch it. It'd be
Yeah,
great.
we would. And
Lumley
so,
Land.
yeah. um, And so, as we come towards the end of this smashing interview, this um, amazing interview, I'm trying to think of other words because me in this dictionary this took far too long. I might just give up because it doesn't work. Even if you put salt on it, it doesn't make it sweeter. The letter Q is disgusting because it's too chewy, because there's too many words beginning with Q. And also, I'm not going to eat any word that's called the Queen. I'm not going to eat that. No, 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 no. I'm respectful. And so, where can people find you without giving away your home address? Online, where
Can
can
all do it.
you
Can
down?
all, yeah. 3 words. You can simply type my name into the Google verse and you'll see where I am. I'm always hovering on Instagram. I'm quiet on Instagram at the minute because I'm preparing for stand up. So just keep an eye on all my social medias. And then I need about a year, I think, if I want to be honest with myself. It's been 20 years since I've done stand up. Uh, so I would say I'll be quiet for this year. I'm appearing in a play in August in Liverpool called The One Ring or something as Trump, and it should be hilarious. So keep an eye on my social medias. Terry Mynott. Just type that into Google Verse.
And how long, because it's an obvious question, but how long is the play on for? How long does people,
Oh,
how
6 weeks.
think? So they've got the summer holidays to be able to come down and
Yeah, come to Liverpool. I hadn't been until my 49th birthday. And oh wow, it's an amazing city. So yeah, come up there for the weekend, and you'll have a blast.
do you reckon that you enjoy the theatre more than filming and voiceovers, or do you reckon you love them equally?
I think after the initial fear, because I think the first lot is just like it's like wading through treacle. It's like the first time you ever do stand up. It's like whoosh, draw, the adrenaline's running too much. But after the fear drops, to there's something magical about the fluidity of the audience, and when you're out there and you get it straight back, yeah, it's great. And working as a team, it's one of the nicest things ever. When you're a cog in a machine, it's absolutely beautiful because everyone's got you and it's fine and you're not on your own and it's lush. Where sometimes I think filming can be a little bit lonely, but I love it filming because I've loved it since I was a kid. So, when you're there, you sort of pinch yourself and go, "Oh, I'm glad I got to do this."
And with the theatre being multiple nights, and it's the same, it's like a routine. It's the same thing every night. Do you reckon that helps you fine tune the craft of acting so that you're by the end of by the end of the play's run, you're a better actor than you were when you began?
Oh, yes, but then understand when you take time off, you get rusty. So, like, I've had hundreds of hours in front of the camera and I should be really good. But my first scene in Doctors, the first thing we filmed, which doesn't show up, I couldn't move my top half. It was like telling Dana Nights. It was ridiculous. I had no idea how my body works. So, be nice to yourself, forgive yourself. But yeah, the more stage time you have, the more time you have in front of an audience, the better off you're going to be because it's just naturally what you do.
And so there we have it, a perfect way to round off this epic, this fantastical interview, and this glorious interview where you realise that I am so short. When I try and look at the camera, it looks like I'm trying to lean back to look at the sky. I only just realised that myself because I tried to, but I looked at myself at the same time thinking it looks like I'm trying to lean. And we'll be back with more wonderful interviews. Thank you for letting me interview you.
Tom, thank you so much. You're so fantastic. I watched your other stuff, which I urge everybody to do. And there's just something about you that's a little bit of magic or a big bit of magic. It depends how you're looking at it. I don't want you to get a big head. But no, you're absolutely fab. So keep on doing what you do.
Thank you. And for anyone wondering when the next interview is, well, now it all depends on what year you're watching this. And if you're watching this in 2025, well, stay tuned. But it all depends on the timing, because I know in life, timing is time, but you have to sort of like work out the correct time.
The timing on this is excellent.
It's a very poor time analogy. And I think on that note, we've run out of time.
Oh,
Thanks.
bless you.
I remember. No, I'm really forgotten.